Welcome to video number 5 in the Quick Start video series with 90-Second Website Builder. Hi, it's Greg Hughes again. Welcome back. I want to show you a couple other things that you can do with images in this great software. In the last video, we talked a little bit about images, but there's so many things you can do. I want to keep going just a little bit with that. So I'm going to go grab the image tool here in the toolbox and just drag. As I let go, this opens up the dialog box or the window where I can find an image. I'm going to find a little bit different image this time. We'll use this one. Before I grab this image, let me show you something about it. I'm hovering over it so that you can see. I get that little Windows pop up there that tells me a little bit about this image. You'll notice I'm grabbing a pretty large image. It shows me the pixel size, 758 by 988. It also shows me that it's 147K. So it's not a horribly big image. It's not like it's a megabyte, but it is a relatively big image. You can see that by the pixels. Anyway, I'm going to select that and click open. You can see it's actually a pretty good size image here. And I don't want it to be this big on my website, obviously, so I'm going to be shrinking it down. But what I wanted to tell you was, even though this is a big image at 147K, and even though I'm going to be shrinking the size down like this, you should know this image file is still 147K. Now, why is that important? Well, because sometimes people will load their website up with images, and they'll think that because they're shrinking them down, they're making them smaller. Well, they're only making them smaller as far as how they display. You're not making the actual file size any smaller. This image is still considered 147 kilobytes. That's important to know so that you don't load your website up with a lot of really big images that have been shrunken down, because the site will just load very, very slow. A lot of times people ask me, how can I speed up my website and make it load a little bit faster? Well, one of the ways to do that is to not use huge images, or at least not too many of them all on the same page. So that's just a quick tip to understand that your file size for the image is not the same as the size that it will appear on the website, because you can change that. Enough said about that. Also, you'll notice that when I grabbed the image, I took the image just somewhere off my computer. Doesn't matter where it's stored on my computer. 90-Second Website Builder is going to organize the images for me as I drop them into my project. So now that I've got this great image, I do want to make it the right size. I don't want to make it this small, and I certainly don't want it as big as it was. As I grab the bottom corner here, and you'll notice I often grab the bottom right corner, and the reason for that is because as I stretch the image, you'll notice it stays in its ratio. This is called aspect ratio. So it stays the same ratio. As opposed to grabbing, say, this corner that does not keep the ratio. Here, I could stretch it wide or narrow. And sometimes it's hard to control that. If you grab this corner, you might make it a little too wide or a little too narrow, and I want it to maintain its original aspect ratio. So the best thing to do is to grab this corner. Watch what happens when I grab. I will click on it, and the software will actually correct the ratio for me. I'm going to click, drag, and you see it fixed the ratio. So you usually want to keep your image in the right ratio. You don't have to, of course. You can always stretch it this way if you want to, or this way if you want to, or use this. But if you want to maintain that original aspect ratio, you use this one. So that's good to know too. Now let's look at some of the fun things we can do with the image. In the last video, we made a reflection and we did a couple of effects. I'll show you one more thing we can do. So double click on it and bring up the image properties. Since this is such a nice image, kind of an antique image of Harry Houdini, I thought what I'd do is make it look more like a real picture. So I'm going to use the frame style. Now there's a number of frames in here that we can choose from. Here's a basic one. I'll click OK. And you can see it just basically turned it into more of a picture or a photograph. Let's double click on it, look at a couple more. There are a number of them in here. Some of them are flashy and gaudy, but make a nice frame. And others are more subtle and photographic. Makes it look like a nice old photo. Speaking of old photos, that's actually one of the effects I could add. If I go to the Effects tab and click on Add, go to Artistic, there's actually an old photo effect. Let's try it. I click OK. There's a little preview of it. I can adjust it to make it darker and lighter, but I'll keep it at that. Click OK. There, now I've got an old photograph, it appears, of Harry Houdini. So that's just a couple more things we can do with images in 90-Second Website Builder. Let's do another thing. Let's make a link, because you can make any image into a link. So I'm going to do that by grabbing the image tool, and I'm going to go grab another image. I drag a box, let go. This time I'm going to go find an image that it looks more like a button, because I'm going to make this a link. So let me go to my desktop. I've got a folder called graphics where I keep a lot of different images that I like to work with. Let's just grab one in here. Here we go. This is just a blue button. All right. So this is just a nice little blue button that I want to turn into a link. Well, here's how we do it. Double click on it, and under the link tab, I can link this to a particular web page. I can link it to an outside website. I can make it an email address link. That's called a mail to link, where I could literally just type in an email address here, and when somebody clicked on the link, it would pull up their email client, and they could send an email. I could also link it to a file on a server, or a file I'm going to upload, like say an ebook, a PDF, or some other file I want to link to, somebody might need to download. And then there are some smart links. Now I'm not going to go into all of the details of these, because there's a video just about linking that you'll see in a future episode. Right now I'm just going to do a basic link to a website. And so the way I'll do that is I'm going to click website. I simply type in the address of the website I want to link to, and I click OK. So this will be a link to a website. Let's try it. I'm going to click F5. And as you can see, when I hover over this, you can tell it's a link by the way the cursor changes. Let's click on the link and see if it goes to the website I linked it to. That certainly does. So I sent it to 90-Second Website Builder, and there it is. Great, it works. Okay, so let's close the preview mode and go back to editing this. I can also have linked this, like I said, to an internal web page. To do that, I would select this option and then go select the page that's part of this project. Now, in this project, I only have one page, so there's no pages to select. But like I said, in the linking video, I'll talk more about that. The important thing for you to know is that any image can be turned into a link. It can link to just about anything you want to, including other parts of the same web page. That's called a bookmark. And again, we'll talk about that in a future video. So there are so many things that you can do with images in 90-Second Website Builder. It's just really a lot of fun. Let me show you one more advanced thing, and then we'll close this video. But this is really a lot of fun to work with. Instead of using the image tool, this time I'm going to use what's called the rollover image tool. That's right over here. I click rollover image, and I'm going to, again, drag out here. I'm going to go find an image, and let's use the green one this time. So I click this image, and I'm going to assign a rollover image to this particular image. That means a different image that appears when my mouse hovers over. Well, I happen to have a great one. I just double clicked and brought up the rollover image properties. So here's the image that I just chose, my green button, but I'm going to pick the hover image. I happen to have a green button that looks a little bit different, just slightly different, called pressed. Now I've got two images assigned to this, because the rollover image properties allows me to assign two different images. Here's what happens. I click OK. To test it, I need to preview. I can't test it in design mode, but when I preview, I'm clicking F5. Watch what happens when I hover over this image. You can see it changes because it's actually switching to that other image. This is great for making sort of a pressed button effect. And then of course I could turn this into a link, and it could go just to anywhere I want it to. You can use the rollover image tool to use it for a link, or just as a special effect to make a different image appear when somebody rolls over an image. There are so many things you can do with images in 90-Second Website Builder that you could spend hours just experimenting. And do that. You won't break anything. Just have fun using the software and experimenting with all of the things you can do using images in 90-Second Website Builder.